Hello, everybody. It is so wonderful to see you here and to have you in this space. Welcome to this workshop that is sponsored by the Maryland Online Leadership Institute. We are also known by the acronym MOLLI. My name is Shinta Hernandez, and I am the MOLLI Director. And I am also the Dean of MC Online and Academic Support here at Montgomery College in Montgomery County, Maryland. And I am so appreciative of how you are planning to choose your hour with us. So this is a great honor for me, especially as I see so many familiar names and faces, but also some very different names and faces I have not seen before. So we thank you very much for being here. For those of you who are just coming in, you're probably seeing what's going on in the chat there. If you don't mind writing in your name, your institution, and your current role at your institution. So just to give us a sense of who is in the audience today, we would really appreciate it. Thank you. Let me just spend another minute or two kind of talking a little bit about MOLLI. For those of you especially who are not familiar with it, but even for those who are. So MOLLI, we provide professional development for online education leadership. We are a signature program of MarylandOnline, also known as MOL. And MOL is a consortium of about 19 colleges and universities, member-based institutions in the state of Maryland that are focused on promoting, advocating, and supporting online education initiatives through ongoing training and collaboration and networking. So offering workshops like this are just one of the many things that MOLLI does for emerging and experienced leaders in higher education specifically, and for those who support online education initiatives. So again, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Now, before we really get started, I want to just share a few housekeeping details with you. So about 10 minutes before the end of the presentation, I am going to put in the chat a couple of web links, a couple of URLs, one of which is a post-workshop survey that I would love for you to fill out as soon as you can, particularly before the week is over, if possible, because your feedback is so important to us. I'm always constantly thinking, and a group of us are always constantly thinking about how to continue designing and redesigning learning opportunities through MOLLI for, again, emerging and experienced leaders in online education. So please share your feedback with us. I will also share the MOLLI website that has information on who we are, what we do, and particularly a residential program that that will be happening in July of next year. It is going to be the 6th residential program that we are offering. And we're really excited about that. So I'll share more of that information in the chat toward the end of the workshop. So please stick around for that. All right. So now that we're done with housekeeping, I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing to you our presenter today for this morning. So as you know, the workshop is entitled Leadership in Supporting Effective and Relevant Online Instruction. We all know that as online education continues to evolve, effective leadership is even more crucial today than it ever has been in order for us to support instructors who deliver quality, relevant, and engaging virtual learning experiences. So I've asked Dr. Paul Miller, who is the Professional Development Director at Montgomery College, to conduct this workshop for us. So let me share with you his biography. Dr. Paul Miller has extensive experience in STEM instruction, K through 16 curriculum development, instructional design and teaching methodologies, project evaluation, inclusive professional learning and development, instructional technology integration, instructional systems development, program implementation, fidelity, and evaluation, and over $34 million in federal and state grant facilitation and management. He has worked with school systems in 28 states and presented internationally at conferences on cooperative learning models, systems theory and coaching, scaling programs with fidelity, effective leadership practices, professional development, competency-based learning, and technology integration to support teaching and learning. Dr. Miller is the Professional Development Director for the Office of E-Learning, Innovation, and Teaching Excellence at Montgomery College and holds an EDD focusing on instructional design for online teaching and learning from Johns Hopkins University and an MA in Instructional Systems Development from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. What an impressive biography, Dr. Miller, and we are so pleased to have you here. I am going to stop share so that you may then begin sharing. So really, without further ado, it is my honor and pleasure to turn the Zoom stage over to you.
Thank you so much, Shinta, and good morning, everybody. I know video is not required, but if you are in a space where you could turn on your video just for 2, 3 seconds, just to wave hello, it's always good to know who's on the other side of the screen. Again, you are not required to keep the video on, but in the spirit of online learning, I know if you teach online, you know that students don't have their cameras on either. So, you know, as instructors, we dying to see who we're talking to on the other side. So again, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to talk about this specific topic because this was actually a key part of my doctoral dissertation. We know that leadership, or without leadership, programs, systems really fail. So leadership is so important in this online space as we kind of navigate and take or seize the opportunity that is available to us, in part thanks to this thing called COVID-19 and the pandemic a few years ago. So today, we'll delve into challenges, strategies, and innovative solutions for creating engaging and inclusive online experiences. So let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick. For those of you who teach online, you know that you're usually doing it through different screens. So if you're looking at the video of me talking, you'll see that I'm looking all over the place. That's just because I'm flying an airplane over here with my 3 or 4 different screens going on. So again, let me just get you all situated in a place where I can see you, because I do like to talk to you. So if you see me looking over here, I'm actually looking at you guys. So so let's start off with a question. So I want you to think about this question as we go through the presentation today. And if you would like to put your response in the chat box, or if you'd like to say your response, please raise your hand. I'll definitely open up the floor along the way. But what has been your biggest insight or challenge related to online instruction? So that's kind of the question I want you to think about now, but also as we go through the presentation. And again, I will ask questions throughout. I know sometimes people want to talk, sometimes people don't want to talk. You are free to do whichever one you want to do. If you just want to listen, that's completely fine too. Student engagement. Yep, that's a real big a key piece to making online learning work, right? Ensuring we're compliant, yep, with accessibility. Big one right now, especially because of those changes to Title II of ADA that are coming down the pike. Faculty development, exam integrity, yep, all of these things. They're all questions with potential solutions or innovations on the other side. So thank you for giving me some insights into your thinking on the screen here. So let's go ahead and start with understanding the shift to remote learning. You know, again, the COVID-19 pandemic really put us in a position where we had to make swift changes to a remote learning process in order to support students who couldn't come to campus, right? And this really presented both challenges and opportunities for educators and institutions. And these things were like technical barriers, right? We know that at least 31% of students worldwide were unable to be reached with technology to be supported through the pandemic due to inadequate access to the technology that was a necessity to support in learning, right? Whether it was internet connections, you know, we really were in a place where it was a situation of the haves and have-nots. Student disengagement. You know, this abrupt shift to virtual classrooms led to a decrease in student engagement. In fact, some reports say that up to 60% of teachers responded that in the virtual setting, students were struggling more to understand the lessons and the concepts compared to traditional classroom environments. There were equity concerns, right? The pandemic really looked at what was going on from an educational inequity perspective, a disproportionality affecting students in low-income backgrounds and those with limited access to digital resources. Again, going back to that 31% from an access perspective. But there were some opportunities. Now, again, we had to shift on a dime, but it gave us flexibility and broader access, Remote learning offered flexible solutions and scheduling, and the ability to access educational materials from any location, potentially reaching a wider audience. So a market share was born with the pandemic. Innovation in teaching methods. Educators adopted new technologies and innovative pedagogical approaches, such as interactive platforms and multimedia resources, to enhance student engagement and learning outcomes. Now, the problem with this is without the proper training, a lot of educators just threw everything in the kitchen sink at students in order to try and get them engaged instead of taking a more systemic approach to understanding how we learn and why we learn in ways that make sense as we transition from that traditional classroom space into the virtual area. Personalized learning experiences. The online format facilitated personal learning, allowing students to progress at their own pace and really accessing resources tailored to their own unique and individual needs. And we're seeing that more and more. This whole term of learner agency is coming into play. And our role as an instructor or as a leader in really reinforcing learning outcomes that support students where they're at based upon what they want from their learning experiences. Evolving expectations. Students now anticipate this flexible, engaging learning experience, but they want it on their own terms, right? And to meet these ever-evolving expectations is crucial for educational leaders to ensure that educators are equipped with necessary tools and training to effectively navigate and leverage the online learning environment. And that faculty development was something that somebody said in the chat box. So effective leadership is really about recognizing the changes that were brought about by the shift in online learning to the opportunities for growth, because this isn't going away. We know that this isn't going away, and we can see that in a lot of our enrollment statistics here at, or at least at Montgomery College. Our enrollment in the online space continues to increase. So by focusing on support and innovation, leaders can assist educators in truly transforming the challenges into successes that lead to student success. So how do we do this? When we think about leadership strategies for online excellence, it really is based upon 4 key aspects. The first is continuous feedback, making sure that we are continuously open to feedback loops that engage people and stakeholders in conversation. Transparency is key through this whole process. If something isn't working, we need to identify what isn't working in order to make a difference in the environment for students. We can't wait to make change in an online learning environment. We stand to lose too many students in the practice. So going from the bottom up, how do we do this? We do this using data-informed decisions. We should be using formative and summative assessment data, analytics, and feedback to really guide the experience that we're trying to craft for our students. We also should be doing this in a way that is very collaborative. Again, go into that transparency. We need to be fostering teamwork between faculty and staff, support systems across the college, in the offices of information technology, because in order for a student to seamlessly experience what they have in a face-to-face classroom, it comes down to intentionality. We need to be thinking about the barriers that exist before they're known barriers that exist, and we need to address them in a proactive way. But it all starts with the vision. What do we really want online excellence to be when it comes to learning for our students? What should it look, sound, and feel like? When we do mission and goals, because effective education does look, sound, and feel different in a physical space to an online space. So we have to, as leaders, truly understand how or what we do in order to create this right environment for our students, right? Understanding foundational learning theories is essential for effective leadership in online education. If we don't know how students learn, how are we supposed to take that from a face-to-face environment and put that in place in an online world? Now, every theory offers unique insights in how learners acquire knowledge, guiding educators in designing appropriate instructional strategies. And that's no different in this online space. So the conversation has to start with, how do we learn? And how do we take that and replicate that or design experiences in the online space in order to make sure that we support learners in every single way? So behaviorism focuses on observable behaviors, right? Emphasizing the role that the environmental stimuli and reinforcement takes in shaping the learning experience. So this is about, Pavlov's dogs, the conditioning, if you will, of our students. So when we put this into an online learning environment, we need to be thinking about, how do we condition our students to understand how we want them to learn in the online space? Now, all of a sudden, things like learning sequences within modules really come to the forefront, because if we teach students what to expect through that behaviorism theory, then we can have them focus more of their attention on actually obtaining the content, right? If we're constantly throwing new things at students, which was a key thing that we did during the pandemic, we're actually confusing the students. We're giving them cognitive overload in a space when we really need to design an experience and replicate that experience so that we condition them to get the most out of the experience. From a cognitism perspective, this is about mental processing, right? Including attention, memory, and problem solving. Learners actively process information. So how do we set up instances within an online environment where we build upon prior knowledge, right? Where we invoke prior knowledge and we allow students to attach their new learning to something that they already know. So when we think about this, we're trying to facilitate comprehension. We're trying to use techniques like chunking, for example, of information and providing information in multiple ways so that students can, again, attach that to or make connections to what they already know. From a constructivist perspective, this is where learners are constructing knowledge. And I know that you guys know this information, but it's always good to, again, go back to this how do we learn perspective. And this is where students actually experiment and interact with each other to construct meaning, right? This is where learners take existing knowledge and put into practice new knowledge and combine information, but it's also allowing students to make mistakes, right? And again, when we think about what that looks like in a face-to-face classroom, how do we facilitate those same kind of opportunities in an online space through collaborative projects, discussion forums, and problem-based learning scenarios that really allow students to model in the learning experience to come out with the true learning on the other side. So online platforms, they can create these activities by providing the space for interaction and for resources for exploration. But it really is about us designing experiences for students to work together to co-create understanding of those resources that are in place. And then the last learning theory, which is a relatively new learning theory in a digital age, is connectivism. This is where we significantly highlight the connections that are needed for learning to take place, right? And when we think about online learning, it can be a very isolated experience. So how do we as instructors set up opportunities for students to come together to find their people, right? To find people that they can work with, that they can connect with, not only in the class, but beyond that learning experience, right? And that's really key, especially in online learning where students don't get to see each other on campus, right? They don't run into each other, in ways that allow them to develop those relationships and those friendships. So intentionality of understanding and integrating these theories into online instruction is really something that a leader must reinforce as we go through and design these experiences for our students. Effective online instruction often requires this blended approach, integrating elements from multiple learning theories to address diverse learning needs and course objectives. Behaviorist techniques can establish foundations of knowledge, help set up routines and expectations, that learning sequence thing. Cognitive strategies can enhance understanding. Constructivist methods can facilitate application through collaboration. And again, that connectivist approach can promote ongoing learning beyond the course. This creates the recipe for student success. So when we apply these learning theories, we can design online experiences that are engaging, effective, and responsive to the evolving educational landscape because we know these things work. They work in the face-to-face environment, so we need to also reinforce them in the online environment. So we also need to use what we know works, right? So building upon the foundational learning theories is this notion of Garrison's community of inquiry model, right? Which offers really a comprehensive framework for online education. And I really like this framework for the way in which you set up the expectations to integrate three core elements: social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. When all of these three areas are together, they interact to create a really meaningful and collaborative experience. So social presence is defined by the ability for students to project their personal characteristics into the community. Again, intentionality. How do we get or give students the opportunity to present themselves as real people in a virtual space, in a space where many times they don't even want to show their face, right? This presence can foster open communication, group cohesion, and a sense of belonging amongst learners. And we know that if there is a sense of belonging, then student success actually exponentially increases. It's one of the biggest predictors of student success is that sense of belonging. So in an online setting, engaging social presence can be achieved through strategies like encouraging the use of personal profiles and introductions to build familiarity amongst students. Facilitating discussion forums where learners can share experiences and insights that are not just tied to the materials, but actually bringing themselves into those discussions. Incorporating collaborative projects that require interaction and teamwork. So these practices can help create supportive online communities essential for effective learning, but it takes time. And it takes time away from content. If we think about the way in which we have to intentionally give students space to engage, that does shift us away somewhat from content. It's very similar to when we say spend time to create teams and allow teams to talk and create norms. You know, that really is secondary to content that is being delivered in the course. So we need to make that a priority. From a cognitive presence perspective, it refers to the extent at which learners can construct and confirm meaning through sustained reflection and discourse. And this really involves critical thinking and the ability to apply knowledge in practical contexts. So to cultivate a cognitive presence, we can design activities that require analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. We need to be thinking about those higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. You know, when we think about the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy, there are systems that can do that, right? We're going to talk about AI here in a few minutes, but AI is really good at giving students what they need from that lower level of Bloom's taxonomy perspective. We need to encourage students to use things like reflective journals or blogs where they can articulate their learning process, right? That metacognition, thinking about thinking. What are they thinking about and how are they reflecting on that in order to show how they're making mistakes in order to understand the deeper meaning behind the concepts that are being presented? And how can we facilitate problem-based scenarios that challenge students to apply concepts, right? Bringing in those real-world pieces really promote that deeper understanding and retention of materials. Now, the biggest thing that we have domain over is that third element of the model, which is teaching presence. Teaching presence is defined as the design, facilitation, and direction of cognitive and social processes to achieve meaningful learning outcomes. In essence, the instructor becomes the facilitator. We hear that a lot, but what does facilitator really mean? It means that we are the architect, we are the puppet master, if you will, that puts all of these things into place, and it encompasses instructional material management, building understanding, and directing instruction. And in order to do this, we must clearly communicate course objectives and expectations. You know, as leaders, we cannot open online experiences for students that are being built in real time. All of the T's and all of the I's need to be ready for students as soon as they enter the online experience. And as leaders, we must really reinforce the notion that in order to be a facilitator, one cannot spend time trying to add new content or add new assessments or add new learning opportunities when all of those things should be there from the get-go. It means that we should be providing timely and constructive feedback on assignments. Again, you are not in that physical space where you can say to a student, oh, there, I've just looked at this. This looks really good. And that appeases the student until you grade it a week or two later. So in the online space, we need to set up rules and expectations around what are the expectations for feedback. And we need to hold facilitators to or instructors to those specific guidelines. We need to guide discussions to ensure that they remain focused and productive. Many times when we look at how instructors engage with discussions, it's kind of hit or miss. I tend to not put myself too much in there because I tend to turn students off because I'm imparting new knowledge in that information. So how do we find that balance, that delicate balance, if you will, of really providing the space for students to create that meaning together? Effective teaching presence ensures that the learning environment is structured and that students are supported throughout their educational journey. And in many ways, that language of making sure that students are supported really puts to forefront what our ultimate goal is as instructors and what we need to reinforce as leaders that instructors do in these educational spaces. So we need to balance and blend the elements of this model. Leaders in online education must empower instructors to balance these three processes to create cohesive and engaging learning experiences. For instance, providing the tools and training for effective discussion facilitation can enhance social presence, right? But these are skills that people have to understand and learn in order to really pull off in the real environment with students. While robust course design supports teaching presence, it really is, again, that training and support that allows for instructors to truly understand what they should be doing in order to create the optimal environment for student success. So effective leadership in online education necessitates a comprehensive understanding of the challenges educators face, particularly in maintaining engagement, ensuring accessibility, and navigating technology. Again, go into those answers that you put in the chat box. The leader in the educational space needs to think about these things from the get-go. We know, and research shows us, that sustaining student engagement in a virtual environment is a prevalent challenge. The obstacles or the absence of physical presence can lead to feelings of isolation and decreased motivation amongst learners. So to address this, implementing strategies such as gamification and collaborative projects, again, can enhance the interaction and the interest of the learners. Incorporating elements like pop quizzes using Kahoot or polls and scenarios require participants to think critically, thereby boosting engagement. Again, we must be using a toolkit of resources to boost the engagement for student success. Accessibility. Ensuring all learners, regardless of ability, can fully participate in online education is crucial. We know that about 46% of students with disabilities do not disclose their disabilities to institutes of higher education. We know out of those students, about 60% of those students drop out within their first year of college. So we need to be thinking about accessibility not as something in response to students with disabilities. When we get that, DSS support letter, we need to be thinking about this by inclusion by design, right? This means that we need to think about the various formats that are needed to accommodate diverse needs. We also need to be leading by the principle of the curb cut effect, right? When we think about walking down the street and there is a curb cut, on the sidewalk, it's not just people with disabilities that benefit from that curb cut effect, right? If you are trying to navigate a child in a stroller, it makes it easier to cross the street, right? If you're carrying boxes, it makes it easier to step up onto the pavement. So we need to be thinking about offering things like videos with transcripts. We need to be, with audio. We need to be thinking about captions. We need to make sure that our stuff is screen reader friendly and that text can make learner materials more accessible, right? So accessibility must be a part of the development process. Inclusive design principles are essential to support learners with disabilities, and this really does speak to that Title II of ADA, which is a big part of what we'll be talking about here in a few minutes. Technical proficiency. Educators may encounter difficulties with digital literacy, right, impacting their ability to effectively deliver online education. And we saw this a lot in the pandemic. What we cannot do in online education is be less well-versed in technology than our students, right? We need to be able to meet them where they're at, and we need to be able to talk at their level. And in order to do that, we must offer tutorials and introductory sessions and intermediate and advanced sessions to help educators become familiar with digital tools that they use, right? This will not only reduce frustration, but it will in turn create a positive learning experience for everybody, right? If educators are frustrated, that's going to come across to students. So as leaders, we must provide that support. So by identifying these needs and providing tailored support, leaders can empower educators to overcome barriers and excel in online learning. This includes offering professional development, again, something that you guys put in the chat box. And these PD opportunities must be focused on engagement techniques, accessibility best practices, and technological proficiency. From a holistic perspective, what we like to use here at Montgomery College is the TPAC model: technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, and how those three constructs come together to create that environment for students. And using that to have conversations around PD really allow for instructors to lead with their content, while instructional designers talk about how to align that content with technology and pedagogy. Another key piece of effective online instruction hinges around this robust collaboration between instructors and IT professionals, right? Because in online education, a lot of things can go wrong. So as leaders, we need to establish clear communication channels, fostering mutual respect, and streamlining technical support processes. And by doing this, we can create a seamless educational experience that benefits both educators and students. So we need to establish clear communication channels. Again, transparency is key in the system that supports online learning. It's vital for addressing technological challenges promptly, and it allows for things like dedicated support platforms to be used so that people know who they need to talk to and when they need to talk to in order to report issues and track resolutions. There needs to be regular meetings. We need to schedule consistent check-in meetings between instructors and IT staff to discuss ongoing needs and upcoming technological challenges. We're going through that right now here at Montgomery College as we upgrade our Blackboard Classic system to the Blackboard Ultra system, and making sure that all parts of the system behind the scenes are working seamlessly together in order to support faculty, staff, and students as they begin to integrate these new processes into their daily practice. We also need to provide clear avenues for instructors to provide feedback on IT services, fostering continuous improvement. Again, online instruction is only as good as the system that is in place. These practices ensure that instructors have reliable access to support and that their concerns are addressed effectively. But with that being said, we also need to foster mutual respect and understanding. Building a collaborative culture requires mutual respect and appreciation of each team's expertise. So we do need to make sure that there is time for cross-training opportunities, encouraging IT staff to participate in teaching workshops and instructors to attend basic IT training sessions, right? If we're trying to explain to an IT person why we need a specific software tool or why we want to use a specific web application, maybe if they understand the why and vice versa, it can create opportunities for success. This gets us to shared goals, right? We can align both teams towards common objectives, such as enhancing student learning outcomes through the use of technology. And we know usually the old adages, innovation goes to IT to die, right? Especially when it comes to systems of higher education. So we also need to take time as leaders to recognize and value the unique skills that each group brings to the table, promoting a sense of partnership, right? So truly understanding as a leader why things may not be as usable or adoptable immediately is really key in making sure that the shared understanding is there, so that that streamline of technical support and those processes maintain a healthy balance in support of student success. We also need to make sure that technology empowers instructors and not overwhelms them, right? So we need to make sure that we are very strategic in selecting cloud-based platforms and using things like interactive video with intention. If we implement them effectively with intention, we can make sure that a flexible and scalable environment can be created for our students. So as a leader, part of this is creating that, again, environment that can be scaled. Very similar to what instructors have to do in the classroom, leaders have to do to instructors, right? We should be providing tools, resources, and supports, and giving the ways in which, or the use cases around how these tools on cloud-based platforms can support learning itself. So interactive tools like quizzes or discussion boards, as we know, can create opportunities for active learning. Tools like H5P and User, for example, allow for more interaction. User is a video platform. But we also need to make sure that in these cloud-based platforms, that it doesn't turn into the Wild West, right? So again, go into things like accessibility, and copyright really needs to be understood. So from a leader's perspective, we need to understand the rules, the governance, and the regulations, so that when those cloud-based platforms are used by instructors, they're used ethically and responsibly. And again, when it comes to things like interactive videos, we can make sure that instructors are using them to show that instructional presence that really makes a key difference to the learners themselves. So we must make sure as leaders that we give educators the access to the tools that they need, but within reason. We're not just providing an open forum of unlimited resources, because that gets us kind of to where we were in the pandemic, where we were throwing everything in the kitchen sink to our students. So the key is to understand how to use them effectively and set up systems in a collaborative manner that can be duplicated for student success. Now, generative AI, we have to leverage that. It's not going away. In fact, generative AI is booming. Currently, there are over 2,000 generative AI tools available. And this is really reshaping education. And it's really defining or redefining content creation, right? And when we think about this from a value perspective, OpenAI's valuation is exceeding currently $29 billion. And there is a projected revenue in the education space of $1.3 billion in 2025. So AI is here to stay, and it can be used to build a course in hours. In fact, we've actually developed mock courses or demonstration courses using generative AI, so that we can showcase the new Blackboard Learning Ultra system to faculty and staff here at Montgomery College. So when we go back to that TPAC model, or technology, pedagogical, and content knowledge, it's really important that as leaders, we begin to make the mind shift that technology and pedagogy really should be coming to the forefront of what instructors need to be emphasizing or integrating in that online space. When it comes to content, AI is making content readily available to our students. So what we really must be reinforcing are those soft skills, or those essential skills, to make sure that in the online space that we're providing opportunities for communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, so students can analyze content or question the content that is being produced, right? So again, making that mind shift to facilitation also points us back towards that technology and pedagogical part of that TPAC model because content is there. And in that online course environment, that content should be readily available from the beginning. So really, what then is the instructor's focus if all of the content is provided to the student at the beginning of their learning experience? So it takes intentionality and it takes a mind shift in how we facilitate learning. And AI can be used as a tool to support that. It's great for providing scenarios. I mean, you can see here on the screen, there are multiple ways it can be used. And here are the top 50 AI applications that are currently being used. As you can see, ChatGPT is at the top. It is by far the most used AI system out of the over 2,000 applications that currently exist with generative AI. And from an educator's perspective, it can be really great to support different ways of providing student information or breaking down the content that students are being asked to learn. You know, as an instructor, as a teacher, you know, we're really good at explaining content one or two ways before we just become really loud and over animated. ChatGPT or generative AI can really help us create different scenarios and break down information in ways in which we haven't even thought about as educators. From a leader perspective, we need to be looking at generative AI. We need to be creating a culture of curiosity around AI. We need to be having transparency around the use of AI so that we can continuously support the students that we serve. So cultivating a culture of professional development is really key from a leadership perspective. You know, we should be offering workshops and trainings, mentorship programs, peer observations, formal or informal based upon union guidelines, but the suite has to be vast. So what I provided on the screen here is actually access to what we offer at Montgomery College. You can use the QR code to access the full professional development catalog. And you can see that we offer a range of different opportunities to support effective pedagogy, technology integration, and conversations around how these things work in the face-to-face and virtual and online environments. So ensuring equitable access and inclusive practices is key. Again, we're starting to get traction with the changes in Title II to digital accessibility of ADA. So in order to do this, we must be leading with things like universal design for learning, right? When we think about online, creating those online experiences that can be led by student agency, we need to be thinking about those multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression, and reinforcing those practices within course design. And as leaders, we should be looking at these three means as innovation, you know, that shows how content can be delivered and assessed and engaged with in multiple ways. And we also need to be thinking about cultural sensitivity, right? Again, we do a lot of this in the face-to-face classroom where we talk about things like culturally responsive and relevant teaching, decolonizing the curriculum, inclusive syllabuses, and those kind of things. But those things are just as important, if not more so, in the online space where students just become a name in a black box on the screen, right? When you don't have those interactions, intentionality leads. And that is that intentionality by design, that inclusion by design that leadership really needs to reinforce in order to create the learning environments where diversity is celebrated and all students feel included, even when they don't tell you so. And again, that feedback loop is also something that we need to create in that virtual space. So best practices for instructional design, we need to think more like instructional designers than instructors when we create these online experiences. So when accessibility leads, belonging follows. That's something that we're starting to adopt here at MC. In fact, that's a selfless plug for our Inclusion by Design Summit on April 11th. It's free and open to anybody, where we're talking about accessibility. We have a clear framework that we're using here at the college to talk about how to operationalize the changes to ADA Title II, right? We need to use that enhanced instructor presence, video, using analytics to understand student behaviors. You know, as an instructor, I used analytics to post my announcements when I knew students were online the most. You know, I can be using those to say, hey, Shinta, I see that you haven't been online in the past week. Is everything okay? Right? Again, we're facilitating that relationship and those learning experiences. And we do need to leverage technology within reason, right? Technology is good, but technology doesn't replace that relationship that also needs to be built amongst students. So when it all comes to the end of the day, effective leadership in online education extends beyond the implementation to encompassing rigorous evaluation, right? We need to utilize data analytics to enable learners to access various facets of online learning, including student engagement, course effectiveness, and instructor performance. Again, we do not have a lot of anecdotal conversations with students in that online space. So we need to take every opportunity to use data to drive our insights, to use the feedback that we do have to evaluate our programs so that they can continue to be successful and scale, because we know that this is a growing market. Again, maybe at your institutions, it's the same as what it is at MC, but this is a growing market for us. So there is a market share and you know, a success waiting to happen in this online space. And I'm thrilled to be working with Shinta in the world of MC Online as Shinta leads those efforts here at the college. So transforming online education, your next steps. You know, as we conclude, it's important to recognize that enhancing online education is an ongoing journey, and it's ever changing because technology that we use is ever changing. So reflecting on current strategies and identifying areas of growth is a crucial step towards continuous improvement. You should reflect, develop action plans that really incorporate small yet impactful changes, which can lead to significant advancements in online education. So use those SMART goals, implement, create those PDSA cycles, you know, the plan, do, study, act cycles, so that we can evaluate in real time and keep online education fresh and evolving in order to make it viable for institutions and students. So I know that that's a lot of information, but I wanted to give a few minutes for questions and engagement. So if you do have a question, I'm happy to take them. You're also welcome to put your questions in the chat box. I do have the chat box up here, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts. Amlan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Very interesting. A lot of things that we try to do, you've spoken about. I just wanted to share a thought in your slide where you said how you learn. And I think about constructivism. I have done that a lot in my face-to-face classes too, with a lot of success, but I'm trying to transfer it to my online classes. And what I see is that there's a group of students, maybe I won't say it's 50%, but there's a group of students who do that, participate, they thrive. There's another group of students who try to do the minimum because it's online, and that's where the success rates are getting affected. So if you would like to comment on that. And
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So what I like to do when I set up the experiences for my students is focus on three specific elements. Equal opportunities for success. So not having one grade hinge upon the whole group work piece itself, right? Individual and collective feedback and celebration. And you know, when we think about the way in which we give that feedback or we celebrate the successes of the team is really, really important. And the third piece is the instructor presence piece to that, right? How do I, as an instructor, not necessarily empower students, but how do I scaffold the information so I know that I'm trying to engage them as much as possible, right? When we think about group work, we tend to, give the task to the students and let them kind of go it alone. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, expect that they've come together they've done what they need to do, right? So, setting up, touch points along the way, or giving opportunities during the online space to actually meet with students at a certain time. When we think about online instruction, it doesn't mean that we can't have touch points with students, right? In fact, what I've actually found is using generative AI to do some of my more time-consuming tasks actually has freed me up to meet more with my students. And by making myself available to the students, they really are taking those opportunities to connect with me, right? So I'll give you an example of how I'm doing that. So at the end of every module, I go through the discussion and I summarize the discussion, and I usually highlight some students, right? And that task usually takes me 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on how robust the discussion is taking place. Now I can actually take that whole discussion thread, put it into generative AI, and say, I want you to create a summary and highlight some students, and it does it in a matter of seconds. So that 3 or 4 hours, I've now, like every other Sunday in my online courses, I say, for 4 hours, I'm completely available for you to meet with me. And I have gone from like 1 or 2 students to extending the 4 hours sometimes, because every student wants to engage, right? I give opportunities for groups to meet with me based upon their projects. So again, it's kind of scaffolding and putting those points along the way so that we can catch as many of those students as possible. But equal opportunities for success is really key. If a student is doing the lion's share of the work, what does their success look like compared to somebody else's success, right? So there has to be, that notion that a group project doesn't lead to a group grade. I'm really against that in my personal practice.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Cynthia, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Paul, for your presentation. A lot of excellent information. I'm always concerned about students being prepared for online classes. Speaking from experience where students are using like really old computers. Now here we're getting into the issue of equality. Students are using really old computers, not knowing the first thing about Blackboard, not knowing the first thing about Zoom, not having any understanding of what online classes entail. And I think that we need to really look at how we prepare students to take online classes.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. There needs to be an orientation for students in an online space, right? I know when I went to do I was very fortunate. I did an online doctorate degree, but I worked at the institution where I got it from. So I felt like it was face-to-face because I was constantly engaged with the instructors in a face-to-face way. But one of the things that they really reinforced going into this was, are you ready to be an online student? Having that conversation with students to say, are you disciplined? Some students are not disciplined enough to do this, right? And, I think it's that self-reflection and it's that kind of empowerment that we give to the students to say, this is what you need, this is who you need to be, and this is how or what supports are there to make you a success along the way. And I say the supports because that's really, really key, right? On campus, we see the notes around campus that says the writing center or the digital learning center, but all of those things are available to the online student too, right? So also, I think it's the instructor's responsibility, and maybe it's it's something that is just copied into each course that says, here are all of the resources that are available to you. The first module of the course is a pop quiz on just understanding what opportunities are there for your support, right? So building those kind of opportunities for self-reflection, for guidance and support into the course or into the program experience is really, really key. And I know Shinta is working on that here at MC. I know that there's a redesign of kind of the onboarding experience for students in MC Online is something that should be rolling out pretty soon. So thank you, Cynthia. Let me go to Vincent's question in the chat box. And where are students taking classes online and how many campuses are taking? Yeah. That's key, Vincent, right? Where are students taking online classes? And when we think about online classes, they should be able to be accessed from anywhere, right? When we think about the tools that are there to support access, I know, for example, I drive to work an hour and 10 minutes each way. When I was in my doctorate program, I would listen to journals being read to me instead of reading them, right? So we need to understand that online learning really can take place anywhere. And if we use those multiple means of engagement, multiple means of action and expression, if we use that universal design for learning principle, we can give students multiple ways to engage with the material, right? And that's really, really key. I know, when it comes to student access, for example, they may be in a situation where they can't turn up the volume on a video, right? So making sure those closed captions are there, like everybody benefits from those kind of approaches. But, we should be designing experiences for them to be accessed anywhere. I will say from the technology perspective, although we think about technology as laptops and computers, a lot of online education actually takes place in the palm of your hand, right? So making sure that we are providing, again, accessible materials that can be rescaled or reused or understood in a mobile capacity is really, really key. One of the really nice things, I know we have some MC folks on the line here, and a big plug for Blackboard Ultra, is the mobile accessibility side of the LMS system. It does a lot to enable or to recreate the learning experience so that students can access it on their phones. We tend to think again of laptops and PCs and stuff like that, but that's really not where a lot of online learning is taking place. Let me see if there are any questions in the comment here. We're studying on nutrition. Yep, that's a great study. Yeah. So are there any other questions? I know we're right at time, so I do want to honor everybody's time. I'm happy to stay on if people want to talk, but I also want to honor your time. So thank you for coming today. This is just a great way to end my calendar year. So hopefully you guys enjoy the upcoming winter break. If you celebrate the holidays, have fun. If you celebrate the winter break, just enjoy the time. Enjoy the time, recharge, because January's coming quicker than we know. So thank you, everybody.
Well, Paul, before we head out, there is somebody who's asking for information on the summit that you had mentioned earlier. Would you
Yes,
put that into the
absolutely.
chat?
Let me grab the link for that real quick. In fact, if you need to leave, if you go into Google and type in Montgomery College Universal Design Center, you'll see the information about the summit there. So it's all on our Universal Design Center website.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful upcoming winter break, and we'll see you in the new year. We appreciate your being here, and thank you so much, Paul, for all the
Yep.
wealth of knowledge you shared.